How good is Arch Manning's film actually? Ladies and gentlemen, the backdrop, Alex Rollins, NFL. Okay, so college football only a few months away, and then it'll be here again. Do y'all remember last year when Arch Manning was not only supposed to be the next great quarterback, but so great that they actually thought teams like the New Orleans Saints would be tanking to have the opportunity to draft Arch Manning? A few weeks into the season, that all went away very quickly. Arch Manning was supposed to be the Heisman winner, supposed to be the first overall pick, whatever. And now he's going back to Texas to try and figure things out. So let's revisit this. Let's take a look at what his tape actually said.
The NFL is at the franchises who wallow in the doldrums of the league, the worst of the worst, are always, at least seemingly, a franchise quarterback away from turning everything around. That's why Arch Manning, looming in next year's draft, has the entire bottom third of the league salivating. The hype has been sky high for a few years now. Yes, he got off to a rocky start at the beginning of last season, but when I dove into the second half of his year, really got into the nitty-gritty, the hype is more than justified. On this channel, we like looking at these stats, then the film, remove as much of the hype and bluster as possible. Well, I am all in on Arch Manning. He's extremely tough, he has excellent pocket presence, can diagnose complicated defenses, he's a plus runner, and despite being under pressure and blitzed all over the place, he excelled again and again. The Texas offensive line was horrible.
I will say, Arch did kind of, I don't want to say figure it out, but he certainly was better in the back half of the season than he was at the very beginning.
Receivers kept dropping passes repeatedly, but Arch just kept coming and laid down incredible tape. One of the things that impresses me most was how successful he was against these insanely complicated defenses. Michigan threw a million different looks at him. These college defenses are really getting crazy, because look at everything Arch has to deal with here. On 3rd and 12, it looks like Texas is running a sail concept, attacking 3 different levels of the defense. If the curl flat defender jumps a receiver, it should leave the other open, but Michigan is coming out in what looks to be straight man coverage. When there are multiple cornerbacks on the same side, it's typically man. If it's man coverage, you can hope that one of these outbreaking routes will beat one of the defenders to the sideline. But Michigan is disguising zone, where they're dropping into a split field coverage, meaning they're splitting the field into halves, where they're playing one coverage up here and another.
The Super Saiyan Blue, Super Saiyan God mode effects are very nice.
They're down here. Oftentimes, to the 3 receiver side, defenses like to play box, where the inside linebacker walls off the inside, then the defender plays the flat for the first outside threat. Then we have 2 more deep, first outside threat deep, first inside threat deep. This creates the box. Usually this deeper route runs off the cornerback to open up the intermediate route. Because Michigan is playing box, Jaden Sanders falls off the deep corner and Elijah Dotson is able to peel off the flat. So Arch has to read all of this out, attack this tiny little window, and it's incomplete, but...
I mean, everyone knows about my 3-on-3 flag football prowess. Undefeated season, didn't throw an interception, but I don't know about this. Like, to me, and hindsight's 20/20, I guess, but I don't want to say that the tight end is probably what I would do here. And this throw,
tiny little window,
corner here seems a little risky business. I mean, I understand what he's seeing, I guess. I guess he's seeing here, but I mean, I'm not saying one of these 2 hombres would have been probably where I'm going with it, namely this guy out here. Tough throw, though. I hate these kind of routes, honestly, like in college, because so few college quarterbacks can make this throw. It's such a long route. This is a super long throw for, every bit of, 6 yards. So, I don't like these kind of routes anyways, but you got to have one hell of an arm. You have Josh Allen level arms to not float this thing. But this seems...
It's
let's see where it ends
incomplete, but look at the...
Yeah, I mean, I know the cornerback drifted back here, but I don't know about that decision.
Placement, it's perfect. I love the way he paces the ball. You can totally see how important arm strength is here. Too high and soft, it's incomplete out of bounds. Too low and it's batted away or intercepted. This location, this is fantastic. Then there was this example against Georgia. I'm telling you, these SEC defenses are no example.
I mean, I like, look. We're 2 minutes into this video. The idea is that this guy is going to be like the first overall pick, top 5 pick, franchise quarterback, whatever. How is this the first highlight?
This is fantastic. Then there was...
How is like a ball out here that gets batted down, good play by the defender, sure, but how is this the highlight that's like, yeah, see, this is what
example against Georgia. I'm telling you, these SEC defenses are no fun at all. You're going to see some of the craziest disguises, some of the crazy...
I mean, again, like, I don't want to nitpick here, but
you're going to see some of
I think there's some issues, like, you know, some fundamental issues with how he throws the ball. And it never, to me, it never looks like he. I just don't know if I see the arm yet. If I see the ability to throw the football at the NFL level. And whenever I watched and broke stuff down, it seemed like the better the competition, the worse he performed. You know, I remember last year I made a video, so I would take a hard thought. You know, if Texas doesn't work out, you go transfer to a smaller place and just go try and light it up. You know, you get transferred to like Louisville. Louisville would be and Louisville's not like a small school, but that'd be a great place to go. Way less pressure than Texas. Get you a kind of a quarterback whisperer as a coach. See what you can do. You know, obviously in Louisiana, you go somewhere, whatever. ULL, La Tech, just go light it up. Just go run up the numbers, lower level competition, and see what you can do there. But, you know.
Craziest disguises, some of the craziest rotations, simulated pressures, all of it. Where Georgia is trying to show this blitz look with 5 on the line, showing man coverage over the slot with a safety in the deep middle. But at the snap, look at what they do. They drop into zone coverage, blitz their linebacker, drop their ends into the middle hooks, and this coverage rotation is called cover 2 zone invert because it has 2 deep defenders defending deep halves, but instead of both safeties, they invert a corner and safety. This changes Arch's pre and post snap read. Initially against man coverage, you want these mesh routes because both guys are
right. So against man, against like cover 1, things like that, you're looking for mesh, you're looking for your crossing routes. That's like the easiest way to beat cover 1, easiest way to beat man.
Running away from their defenders, it's hard to catch them. But Georgia drops into zone. In typical cover 2 zone, Arch would read this corner since both safeties would be dropping back deep. But now he's to process its zone and not man, who the new defender is he's trying to vertically stretch, then put this ball, just like our last play, over his head while he's racing straight back. Once again, soft enough that he lofts it over him, but hard enough that he beats a safety flying over the top. On these longer developing plays, the throw is obviously important, but so is the quarterback's ability to extend the play by maneuvering the pocket and creating more time, which Arch is excellent at.
Yeah, Arch is good at the end of the back half of the year. He was good at running around, scrambling, extending the play, things like that. He did, and that was, that's what he was kind of. When Quinn Ewers was the starter, Arch would come in and he would be, and I said this last year, but I thought Texas made it hard on Arch, and I think they should have used way more of that quarterback power, some of that stuff that he was really good at, and he was brought in to do when Quinn was the starter. And he kind of needs that. He kind of has that. He has a little bit of Tim Tebow in him. He's got a little bit of that Tim Tebow where it's like, it's not the prettiest ball. It's not the best arm. He's a good athlete. He's not Cam Newton, but he's a good athlete here. And what made Tebow so great was that the design runs, quarterback powers and gator heavy, as they called it back then, and his ability to convert from short. And I think Arch needs to do the same thing. I think they need to lean into adding that element to him to take away some of that, like, we're going to force you to be a quarterback here on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 4th and 1, whatever, and just get him used to read option and quarterback powers and converting in the red zone and converting on short and using some of his athleticism.
For example, Texas is running this fake screen,
but he kind of throws like a right-handed Tim Tebow. Like that's something that kind of throws me off when I watch it, is that it's almost like he's kind of shot putting it. He's kind of very similar to Timmy.
Scissors concept they run all the time, where Arch pump fakes the bubble screen to see if the corner is flying down to make a play. Then they have a scissors concept, a quarters beater on the backside. Michigan was showing Arch man coverage tells all day long, trying to align two defenders straight over Parker Livingston and Jake Endries. So Texas uses a yo-yo motion to see if Cole Sullivan, the linebacker, follows Endries, the tight ends.
What do we call this? Identifier motion. All right, you're trying to identify what defense they're in with motion. You're trying to give the quarterback a tell.
Or not. If he does outside, it's probably man coverage. If it's zone, you don't want a linebacker here on an island. So when Sullivan doesn't follow, Arch knows it's zone coverage on the backside. Yep. He sees the fake screen isn't working, but when he comes back, neither is scissors. This should be a good coverage to use scissors against, force the too high safety to choose the post or corner, but that's why Michigan is playing Tampa 2 zone coverage to protect this post route they know is coming. So Arch starts running to put pressure on that Tampa backer, then flips the post over.
Yeah, he is. I mean, this linebacker just gets absolutely lost.
Over his head for another incredible play. Here it happens again with the same exact play just a week before, where Arch, like I said, was the 6th most pressured quarterback in the country, but he's able to use his feet to get out of pressure.
And all that, that's something that's good. Like when you're running around scrambling, you want to keep your head up, keep your eyes downfield, and keep the play alive. The minute you look down, the minute you look at your feet, the play's over.
Then again, find his guy deep over the middle on the post. Speaking of that pressure, I believe it's actually a good thing to see him handle these muddy pockets and attack you deep. A lot of big-time QB prospects at big-time schools have elite offensive linemen, so it's harder to determine how he'll handle pressure.
Like that, I mean, again, like this is one of those plays where
big-time schools have elite offensive linemen, so it's
pockets collapsing, obviously not a good situation. And we see him kind of back foot, like look at him, like back foot, player in his face, throw it up into the middle of the field here.
To determine how he'll handle pressure at the NFL.
Where does this ball end up going? I feel like I'm watching it like
have elite offensive linemen, so it's harder to determine how he'll handle
to 0. Right, this is him.
Handle pressure at the NFL level.
This was incomplete. Again, it's hard to tell. But
big-time schools have elite offensive linemen.
Yeah. So the wide receiver breaks in on this little in route here.
So it's hard.
Gets hit. I mean, like you're threading a window. You know what I mean? You're getting hit. Someone's in your face. You have pressure. You're falling backwards. Pocket's collapsing. And you're throwing it across the middle of the field to this guy in between 2 defenders and a referee.
Harder to determine how he'll handle pressure at the NFL level.
I can't really tell if it's the
receiver.
Makes it
harder to scout him, honestly, because there's so much projection
it's the same play.
involved.
Okay, yeah, same play.
Because there's so much
so he's getting hit, back foot, can't step into it, letting it rip.
Projection.
Ball, pulls it a little bit.
Involved, but Arch dealt with mud.
Got to make the catch, obviously, but
pockets often and still excelled. Not only that, but he handled being blitzed very well, also 6th most in the country, where with pressure, when blitzed, he still cooked. This is one of my favorite plays because he doesn't look to the sideline. These coaches always have these cards for everybody on offense and defense to look at. Well, what I like about Arch here is that he's not looking at all and can dissect Georgia's called an all-out cover 0 blitz. So he knows it's going to be man coverage, and if in fact Raylan Wilson does come, we'll have a deep safety on Quintravian Wisner with plenty of room to run after the catch. I even like how Arch feels the extra rusher coming off the left.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of what we talked about in the first couple of plays. So the first couple of plays, it was like, hey, man, just kind of get it down, get it out. Like you're hot, just dump it. And here he does, and it works out.
Knows that cover 0 means he'll have one free runner coming no matter what. He slides to his right a bit and makes the throw. Now, there was certainly a lot of talk about his mechanical struggles, and while that can be challenging to dissect, we've seen Phillip Rivers have...
Yeah, I mean, and this is what I was talking about earlier. I think there's some kind of mechanical issue. I mean, you don't always have to be mechanically perfect, but I mean, I don't know. Like, Rivers got away with it, sure. Other quarterbacks do. I mean, Josh Allen had bad mechanics, and then he fixed them in the NFL, and then he became really good. He really struggled early on, but I don't think it's good practice to just be like, who cares about mechanics? Look at Phillip Rivers. He threw it underhand. Lols.
Tons of success with wonky mechanics. We've seen Josh Allen change his mechanics at the
yeah. Yeah. I mean, this guy are in lockstep here.
next level. So while we're looking at Art's throwing here, take it all with a grain of salt to show what his mechanics look like and should look like.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that such a Tebow throw.
Let's bring up a side-by-side with Joe Burrow here, somebody I consider to have absolutely perfect, flawless, easy mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, this is completely different.
The first thing I notice is how Burrow looks more fluid in his drop and his gait is wider. A wide gait isn't imperative. We've seen different quarterbacks use different tactics, where Peyton Manning tap dance as much as possible to be ready to throw whenever. Breeze had an extremely wide gait to be in constant position to have his base activated to throw. But for some quarterbacks, like Carson Wentz, overextending your gait can lead to a lack of rotation and the ball will sail. For Arch here, a very small gait actually seems to do that too. His step is so small that
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we saw that in a couple of throws earlier, where he's not stepping into the throw. It's all arm. It's kind of on the back foot. Sometimes his legs are square. Sometimes he's basically fully facing. Both legs are square, and he's just all arm. And maybe that's sometimes it's because he's getting hit. There's pressure, and he can't step in or whatever. But I think that's also why his ball tends to flutter and sail.
It's forcing his top half to do all of the rotation and all of the work, so he's not getting his lower body activated to create
I mean, right here, like, look at his lower
maximum power like Burrow is. I mean, look at how Burrow has his hips, shoulders, and head connected. They're all in sync, all
I mean, this is beautiful.
Moving towards the same point, all working together to create accuracy and velocity. Whereas for Arch, his hips are kind of locked.
I mean, right here, like, again, the mechanics, and this is something that it's the NFL, and something that I think is dangerous when it comes to draft prospects or when it comes to forecasting players is like, oh, well, this won't happen in our building. We'll fix this. This won't be how it is here. We'll get all this right. And we hear that all the time, like with Anthony Richardson and players like that who are obviously developmental players and obviously, raw athletes or raw prospects who they need to kind of find those mechanics, whatever, in the pros. But that's a risky proposition. It's a risky proposition, especially for a quarterback, to fix their mechanics, be the same level player, and be able to also figure out the NFL and play at that high level while changing something they've done for their entire life. Like, looking at these two side by sides, absolutely has to have some mechanical changes. And I don't think, for me, it's difficult to have like the synonymous thought of you are a franchise altering number one overall pick. You are a franchise changer, high level, whatever player, absolute dominant MVP. Because if you're taking a quarterback first overall and you're saying you're a franchise changing player, you're, generational, whatever, you believe they are going to be playing at an MVP level, blah, 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 blah. Well, it's hard to do that. Or it's hard to say that and believe that when you're also like, yeah, there are some broken mechanics and the mechanics do need to change. To me, that makes you much more of a high upside, high potential, but a little bit more of a developmental, kind of like J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy's got a lot of stuff he's got to work on. And I think Minnesota knew that. McCarthy was young when he was drafted and they were going to give him time or whatever, but looking back, it's like, well, for someone that's so raw, that has so little, at that point, McCarthy had played a year or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I mean, those two don't line up. If Arch is taken, like Ty Simpson in this year's draft is kind of like that, where Ty Simpson is kind of like, yeah, man, you give him a couple of years, he might be able to figure it out. It's like, all right, well, how does that equate to him being the first overall pick? And then all of a sudden now we're seeing Ty has dropped a little bit to where Ty's arguably, some people don't think he'll even be a first rounder.
Out, it messes with the rotation in his delivery and creates an awkward looking motion. The last thing I want to note is his head movement. This actually goes for all football positions and even all athletes. I was told long ago by an old scout that you can determine athleticism by the amount of movement from an athlete's head. where a good athlete's head is barely or even not moving at all when he's throwing, running, hitting, whatever, compared to Burrow, Arch's is all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't think his mechanics are a gigantic red flag, just wanted to tackle an obvious flaw in his game that's gotten a lot of hype. And it's clearly something he can work on. Whereas something that's very much a green flag, I love his ability to move.
Yeah.
We've reached an era where damn near every quarterback.
This is where he's the best, for sure. And this is where I think Texas got away from, and Texas needs to lean more into it. And now, is he physically gifted enough to do this in the NFL? Can he be a quarterback power designed run guy in the NFL?
Have some mobility. So now we need to determine who has average mobility and who has plus ability.
God, 9 got absolutely cooked.
Arch ranges much closer to plus, where he's not Lamar Jackson, but he is going to be a threat in the QB run game. He is a great.
He needs to be. He's not Lamar. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Cam Newton. He needs to be Daniel Jones. He needs to be able to go. He needs to be able to run. He needs to be able to have that designed game to him. He needs to be somewhere in that, like, if Jalen Hurts is here, like Daniel Jones is here, Arch needs to be somewhere in there with adding the run game to his repertoire.
Scrambler, and he's able to add that extra element with his legs that takes him up another level as a prospect. I am high on him. Usually I feel like I come in kind of pessimistic to these overhyped guys and I'm almost never as high on them, but Arch, to me, is legit. It'll be fascinating to see teams potentially race to the bottom, that first overall pick to get him, in a league where
this throw the same thing. I mean, I know he's moving around. I know the pocket's kind of chaotic
first
here,
overall
but look
pick
at his
to
feet.
get him, in a league.
Like, look at this. I mean, he's basically full planted, all arm, all upper body. Legs are almost completely horizontal.
Where I believe
over the middle of the field, just kind of flipping it over the middle of the field like
taking
that.
Rarely.
Good throw, fine. All that's fine, but those things scare me.
If ever happens, there are some bad NFL teams heading into 2026, let alone 2027 when he comes out, and one of these bad teams will unfortunately be the ones rostering Arch a year from now. The question is he that good, that special of a prospect that he can become one of the Joe Burrows that turns a historically shoddy franchise around? I believe yes. Because of his toughness, his ability to navigate the pocket and extend it, he's already deciphering extremely complex defenses, he has great running ability and thrives under pressure. This is what an elite prospect looks like, and he has an entire another season to grow in college football. Arch is the man. He is the future of the NFL. But first, let's see him grow this year as a prospect, then turn a horrible team in the NFL completely on their head.
Hit him with he's the future of the NFL. All right. I think Arch has tools. I think he could be good. I do think he's far away from being the first overall pick, game-changing, franchise-altering, tank for Arch kind of player. He's got to fix a lot this year at Texas, and he's got to fix the mechanics. I think that's step one. If I'm looking at him as a prospect, I need to see way better from the lower half. I need to see way better from the arm slot. I need to see way better from the head movement. I got to see some of that, but he is facing super tough defenses, and there's no doubt about it. He's in a system that's making him think, and Sark is a hell of a coach, and so mentally he probably will be. He's been there for a while. It's not like he's a guy who has half of a year of experience. I mean, he's been at a big school under Sark for a long time for a prospect. So mentally, all of that, he'll probably be ahead of the game. Question is, can his mechanics, can the physical stuff catch up to it? And I put him closer to like a Garrett Nussmeier player, and Nussmeier had a little bit of the similar stuff coming into this year where he was hyped up, could be a first overall pick, could be a top 10 guy. And Nussmeier was hurt, so it is what it is, but he's got some mechanical stuff that I've said before, like I want to see him clean up, and if he cleans up, then he could be fine, but Nussmeier isn't he's not a tank for Garrett Nussmeier. He's not a franchise-altering future of the NFL player. You know, like right now, is Arch going to be better than Garrett Nussmeier? Or do you think Garrett Nussmeier is, his in college at his peak was better than Arch will be at his peak? So if you think yes, or you think they're comparable, one can't be a third round, fourth round pick, and the other be the quote unquote future of the NFL. So we'll see how it plays out. I think Arch could have a good year this year. You know, but again, like having a good year in college and performing in college doesn't necessarily make you the future of the NFL and a franchise-changing quarterback. It'll be interesting to see. I think he took his lumps last year. You know, he had all the hype. It came out of the gate ugly. The Ohio State game was one of the most horrific performances I've ever seen from two offenses. But you know, maybe that'll settle him down. Maybe he learned his lesson, whatever, and he'll be better this year and be a little bit more comfortable, a little more confident, whatever. But yeah, I mean, the hype train, if he starts off hot, the hype train will be insane, no doubt about that. But let me know in the comments below what you think. Where do you come down on this? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.